Welcome back everybody, I am Follygon, and in this video I'm going to be taking a more realistic head that I sculpted in yesterday's video. You can find a link to that down in the description. And I'm going to be taking that more realistic head and transforming it into something more stylized. But before we get in and talk about the process, click that subscribe button if you are new around here. And check out gumroad.com/Follygon for things like my custom brushes, online courses, my new 30-day challenge document that you can grab for only $1, and a bunch of other free goodies. So to start off here, the first thing that I'm going to do is take my more realistic head and mirror it to create symmetry back into the form, as I'm going to be working on this symmetrically as I transform this. The first thing that I am going to do with this head is start to reblock out, define my planes, and start to redesign a lot of the forms that I already have. So a lot of you might be wondering, what is stylization? It is the taking of something that typically already exists and changing it in some way, giving it a new style, often through reduction or exaggeration of certain aspects, sometimes reduced so much that they are removed entirely. What I am doing during this part of the process is finding the areas that I want to highlight and take everything else and reduce it. So I have a lot of what are called secondary forms for my character's head. Secondary forms are additional forms on top of a primary shape. Makes sense, right? First and secondary forms. So I have this side plane area of the cheek, and you could look at that as one large plane. And then on top of that, there's a lot of secondary form to break up that plane and make it more visually interesting. And then there are smaller textures on there like pores and wrinkles to add even more breakup. So all of that tertiary detail is removed completely. That is not necessary for what we are going to be doing here. And then a lot of that secondary form, it is either removed entirely or the primary form is made as a larger focus. This reduction in form begins to happen exactly through what I am doing right now. And that is going through and finding my primary shapes, exaggerating those forms, finding out where those surfaces change direction, and making those edges nice and sharp. Now the reason I'm making them super sharp at first is so that I know where they are and I can now begin designing my shapes. After I know where they are, I can go back over them and start to soften them a little bit more for the specific areas that I want to. So this process continues for a while. I am not using any additional reference with this. I am just kind of going off of my own design sense, taking what I already created in yesterday's video and trying to find some different aspects that I really enjoyed about that character sculpt. One area that I really enjoyed was some of the shape language that I had around the character's eyelids. Around the inner corner of both eyes, I had this kind of sharper edge that bled out to the outside corner of the eye, and slowly I took that form and gently faded that into the flat portion of the front plane of the face. Now that is one very specific decision that I made out of many here, but that is just a great example of one area that I like to focus on with this specific character. I also took areas like the eyelids that felt a little bit more soft, and I sharpened those up to make them cast harder shadows around that area, which gave a very nice dark shadow on the eyeball. I did things like exaggerate the character's lips, making them wider and also tighter so that the form in there felt a little less fleshy and a bit more of a reduction in form to focus on the primary shape. If you guys are interested in learning more about lips, I have a great video that I made just the other day where I sculpted 4 different pairs of lips all in 1 hour. I'll throw a link up on screen and down in the description if you guys want to check it out. I reduced a lot of the form in the ear as well, as a lot of that was very anatomically specific, and if the ears had more anatomical detail than the rest of the face, that would bring a lot of visual focus to that area. So I softened and cleaned those up, and then I began to paint my character's face. The way I like to paint characters, even realistic characters, is I will start with a single basic color, fill that in as my base skin tone, then focus on adding warmer colors to fleshy areas and cooler colors to less fleshy areas, or specifically here with more masculine faces, around the cavity of the eyes, also around the lower region of the face, typically where you would find facial hair. I also add lighter areas to more bony protrusion areas, such as the bridge of the nose, the brow, and the chin. Then I very slowly go back over everything and kind of neutralize it, clean it up, and get it away from feeling like clown makeup. For the eyes, I hand paint these. These are super easy to do. It really just requires one darker value, one lighter value, and then a little bit of some hand painting for shadows. If you're interested in learning more about hand painting eyes, you probably know what I'm already gonna say. There's a link down in the description. You guys can check out my free tutorial there. For a lot of my stylized characters, for the eyelash, I just like to insert a simple piece of geometry and then fill that in with a solid black color to kind of frame the transition from eyelid to eyeball. Then I insert some very simple eyebrows These are just tubes of geometry that I've flattened out, and then begin shaping those into something that feels a little more interesting. And then from here, pretty much the rest of the entire process is just cleanup, taking what I already have and revising. So some of the harder planed out areas are still a little bit too much for my tastes, so I go back through and soften a couple of those. And then just using my move brush to make any specific changes to a couple areas here and there for the silhouette. And then here is a quick turntable of that final head, and I'm also gonna put a turntable up for comparison of where we started. In the past, I've done a version of this video where I took a more stylized character and turned that into something a little bit more realistic, so this was kind of a flip-flop on that idea. Hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, click that like button, and if you're new around here, click that subscribe button. Check out gumroad.com/Follygon for things like my custom brushes, online courses, and a bunch of other free goodies. And with that, you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.